an abortion clinic bomber a terrorist under this definition? Governor?
I don't know if you're going to use the word terrorist there, but
I hate to quote Chairman Mao, but he was right. Kill one, scare 1,000.
We need a civil war that will kill a whole lot of people.
In front of you is a global map of all the abortion laws in every country throughout the world. There is something you as an American should pay very close attention to on this map. As you can see from its color-coded areas, America's laws on abortion are the same as those found in Catholic Europe. In fact, they are even the same as those found in Italy itself, the very home of the Vatican, from where the traducianist heresy emerged. Because Vatican traducianists are deceived by an unbiblical heresy issued by the Pope of Rome, thinking abortion is actually murder, they feel no act of sabotage against America is unjustified, because after all they are quote, saving lives, end quote. But this Vatican deception is filled with unbelievable hypocrisy that exposes the real intents and purposes behind this heretical movement, which have in the end, nothing to do with abortion at all, but Vatican domination of the United States and disintegration of its wall of separation of church and state, that was designed by our Protestant forefathers to protect us from the very thing Rome is now attempting to pull. Vatican traducianists promised conservative Protestants all over the country for years, through its traducianist surrogates in the Protestant churches, that if they would only stock the U.S. Supreme Court with all Roman Rite Catholic judges, then Roe vs. Wade would be overturned. Despite these promises, absolutely nothing was done about abortion. However, Rome's compulsory state-sponsored Christ Mass was upheld as federal law, limits on pedophile child abuse lawsuits were imposed, and Rome's financial interests were handsomely secured. Despite the fact that Rome's own court did nothing about abortion, it still found abortion a convenient tool to issue a Roman Catholic fatwa against our President of these United States for not submitting to their demands on state-enforced traducianism laws, which Rome wanted our President, not their court, to impose on Americans. And while Rome's political surrogates run across the country working on a balkanization of the United States through the promotion of Southern secessionism, using abortion as its excuse, it completely ignores virtually the same exact abortion laws in its own backyard, in Italy. While Rome's traducianist surrogates are busy declaring war on America and pronouncing God's judgment on our country and its democratically elected leadership, it somehow never manages to bring up Italy. In the Bible, Christ warned that those who refuse to get the beam out of their own eye first, yet somehow always manage to make it their business to complain about everyone else, were hypocrites that were damned to hell, and their hypocritical judgmentalism was prime evidence of this condition of damnation. When was the last time you heard one of the Vatican's traducianist preachers declare all the horrible things God was going to do to Italy? That's right. You never hear it. Never. Don't you think that is odd? Don't you think Rome and its traducianists should be working on balkanizing Italy's government first? Or perhaps pronouncing all the curses and judgments of God on Italy first? Especially since it is the papacy that is the source of this doctrine of traducianism, that the papacy itself feels justified in declaring war on the United States, supposedly over? You see, dear Christian, the Vatican could care less about Italy, because in reality, it could care less about abortion. Even in Catholic states where abortion is illegal except when the mother's life is in danger, thousands upon thousands of Catholic abortions are obtained per year by the wealthy. So the traducianist claims that this is what justifies their anti-American activities and attitudes is patently false and hypocritical. If it weren't, they would all be in Italy first, pronouncing the judgment of God on Italy first, and balkanizing its country first, because Italy is the very home of the Vatican itself. If any country on earth should be held to a higher standard, it should be Italy, the mother of Rome, and very origin of this doctrine of traducianism. But of course, it never is. So do not fall for these claims by the Vatican's traducionists that America is under the judgment of God because it does not use the American secular state, in violation of our own Constitution, and Protestant covenant with God, to enforce Rome's traducionism laws here in America, when Rome itself will not even require it in its own backyard first. These are nothing more than political excuses being used by a current papal administration that came from Adolf Hitler's Germany, led by a Nazi youth, and former head inquisitioner, and who worked in cooperation with Prescott Bush to conquer America for the Nazi Reich. It is an old conflict, being played out by old men, who will soon no longer be on the earth to continue their evil works. And let it be the personal prayer of all American Protestants, traducionist or not, who hear this message, that if judgment is to come for failure to comply with Rome's traducionism laws, let it begin as it does in the scripture, at the house of the Lord first, and in this case, since the papacy thinks it is the Lord, let it begin with Italy. Let Italy be destroyed, let Italy be balkanized through secessionism, let Italy be the object of God's wrath, and America can rightfully stand next in line, behind all the Catholic states of Latin America, and Europe. Or you must admit to yourself, however painful it might be, abortion is not what is really going on in this traducionism heresy movement. There is something else at work through its rhetoric and judgmentalism, and it is all about Rome's lust for power, not America's lack of traducionist purity.
Well, words have consequences, and what we did in the 70s and 80s, my father, Dr. Francis Schaeffer, Dr. C. Everett Koop, who became Reagan's Surgeon General, members of the Republican Party who worked with us to make abortion part of the Republican agenda, the Roman Catholic allies that we had in the church, various people, we talked, and our talk got more and more extreme and less democratic. There's a direct line connecting the rhetoric that I was part of as a young man and this murder. And so people like me are responsible for what we said and what we did and the way we raised the temperature on this debate out of all bounds. And so when O'Reilly talks about the fact that these people of the far left are against Fox or against him or trying to muzzle debate, he's telling a lie. I am not a member of the far right. Until I voted for Barack Obama in the last election, I'm a lifelong Republican. And I am still pro-life. I also believe abortion should be legal. Pretending these words don't have an impact is crazy. So this is what helps unhinge a society. Talking like this, and I was part of that, and that's why I apologized. And I would apologize again. I am sorry for what I did. And I think that people who say extreme things should stand up and take the consequences and admit when they were wrong. And in this case, we were wrong. We were wrong morally, and we were wrong politically. And as a believing Christian, I was wrong in terms of someone who says he follows Jesus Christ.
Lightly. But now there's a new book that argues a fascist movement is underway today in the United States, and it's being driven by a part of the Christian right, preachers like Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson. The book is called American Fascists, the Christian Right and the War on America.
You saw that name there, you saw the name on the bottom. Chris Hedges, the man who wrote the book, former foreign correspondent for the Times of New York, has more than 20 years experience covering wars and conflicts around the world, and now I guess he's covering what he calls another type of war, which is the Christian right's war on America. By the way, Hedges grew up studying the Bible, graduate of the Harvard Divinity School. I think your father was even a Presbyterian minister. Nice to see you, man. How are you?
Thank you. Good.
Welcome.
Those so-called Christians in the United States who want to create a Christian state, in generic terms, they're fascist. Certainly, fascist conjures up historical images, as you saw, pictures of Mussolini or Hitler, but it is an ideological belief system. And that's certainly the argument of the book, that this has been a dangerous mutation. These are not traditional evangelicals. They're not traditional fundamentalists who have always called on followers to remove themselves from the contaminants of secular society, to shun political power. Evangelical leaders like Billy Graham always talked about not getting too close to power, and he himself was used and burned by Richard Nixon. This is a dangerous and radical mutation. It is about creating, using the iconography and language of Christianity to create an authoritarian, or I think arguably a fascist state.
Now,
fascist state.
Now,
fascist state.
Now,
fascist state.
Now,
to end the Florida recount, thereby handing the 2000 election to George Bush.
People say that that decision was not based on judicial philosophy, but on politics.
I say nonsense.
Was it political?
Gee, I really don't want to get in. I mean, get over it. It's so old by now.
Here in the birthplace of Benito Mussolini, the memory of the Deuce still remains. In spite of all historical, moral and political objections, and even still, there is fascism here. Violent Italian football fans mimic the old Roman greeting of outstretched hands.
Con tutti gli onori saranno ricevuti a Palazzo Chigi. Noi intanto diciamo.
The new industrial power is here, with the fascist union known as Cisnal. For the first time since the end of the war, they find themselves with access to power at the highest level, with the fascists who'd been out of power for 50 years. Yet that's what happened on election night, and however the leadership dressed it up with talk about post-fascism and democracy, the young fascists in the street knew they had won.
Analysis of the electoral vote, the youngsters have voted 40% left and 45% Berlusconi or fascist. This is extremely dangerous.
Shown on TV recently, commemorating the dead who fell in the march on Rome that brought Mussolini to absolute power. Nicola Cucullo is the new mayor of Chieti, elected last December in a landslide vote. And here in provincial Italy, where the image makers have yet to reach, the soothing phrases of so-called post-fascism haven't yet caught on. Mayor Cucullo was quoted as saying Hitler was the most intelligent man of the century, and his mistake with the Jews was not to have fried them all.